Okay, today I have got a round 5 game. I think this is actually the first round 5 game that I've casted. This is Radiowaves versus Fod. Radiowaves, the Zerg in the top right of this map, and Fod, the Protoss, in the bottom left. It's round 5, so we're getting into the tasty end of the tournament, and players are beginning to look like they know what they're doing. With that said, is that a gap? Is that gap supposed to be there? I don't know if it's a gap or not. It's always hard to tell. Look at what? I don't know what that was. Anyway, there it is again. Look, there's strange things are happening in the world of StarCraft. Maybe we're in the core hole sector or something like that. So, Radiowaves in previous games has opted for spawning pool first. I have yet to see him do a sort of hatch first, so I think we're going to see pretty normal stuff from him. Likes to be aggressive, likes to get ling speed up and get across the map and get into his opponent's face. Fod, meanwhile, going for a double gateway opening, and this is becoming a pretty common opening for Protoss to go for. Used to be the case that you would pretty much just always be gateway then side core, but in the modern game, starting with more workers, you have got the minerals to drop a second gateway and not really delay your side core substantially at all. We can see that he has got gas up, but only mining, only 2 workers in there at present. So I wouldn't be expecting to see any gas-intensive build come from him. If you were aiming for anything like Dark Templars, you would need as much gas as you can get your hands on. Over in the Zerg base, both gas geysers now up and mining. The spawning pool is... Oh, did he? He must have went Evo first. Oh, that's just weird. The spawning pool is almost finished, and when it does finish, it's not going to have to wait long with these 2 geysers to get the speed upgrade. He is researching carapace, which is interesting, so I wonder if he's going to go into roaches. This overlord is morphing into an overlord that can carry stuff, so perhaps we're going to see a drop. I'd have preferred him to morph this overlord into carrying stuff so that he can drop lings into the back of his opponent's base, but no matter. A drop lord is a tasteful thing indeed. So speed being researched. Carapace obviously affects everything, but roaches tend to be the things that benefit from it the most because they're armored. So this additional carapace upgrade means they are very tough indeed. But obviously it's of benefit to every single unit you have as a Zerg player. Yeah, that was a gap, but Fod has got these zealots positioned well, so nothing can get in through this wall, although they're not on hold, but that's okay. A forge coming down, a twilight console coming down, and another gateway coming down. Still only on 1 gas. That's a lot of tech to be throwing down to only have a single gas geyser. So definitely going to need more gas than that if he's going to be able to afford upgrades from the twilight or from the forge. No mothership core yet. That concerns me a little bit, and it seems to be a recurring pattern. Protoss players in our novice league not yet getting to grips with the mothership core mechanic. It's just it's just part of your build. It's so standard. It's got to be done. So look at this, Radiowaves coming through. He has researched Overlord's speed, which is brilliant. These units are going to be so far out of position if lings drop into the back of this base. This would be the sweet spot, so you can unload all of them before they are seen and then just run them straight into the mineral line here and get a lot of damage done. Again, if there was a mothership core at home and a pylon here, that mothership core could see off a huge number of lings. But there isn't. These gateways just being converted into warp gates, and that will help. That will mean he can warp in units to help defend this. So here we go. Let's see how much damage this drop can get done. Is he going to run them straight in, or is he going to go and refill? Yep, in they come. How quickly will the Protoss react to this? Hasn't reacted yet. He's losing workers. That's going to be... Oh, no, he's losing workers fast. He hasn't pulled the workers. This is a grinder. Look how much damage that has done so quickly. That is woeful. So yes, these lings are going to die, but those lings didn't cost nearly as much as those workers, nor do they take as long to replace. Oh, that is surely game-ending damage. Fod now down to 3 workers who are still mining gas. Really needs to transfer them into minerals. That's horrible. That is horrible. So a very, very successful play indeed. You know, what do you do? What do you do if you're a protoss and you suddenly find lings in your mineral line? Step one, run the workers away. Flee from the lings. The lings are faster than workers for sure, but nibbling at the tail end of your workers is very different than being in amongst them. So grab the lot and just pull them fast. Pull them toward your army. As they approach your army, click on, right click a mineral patch so that your workers can walk underneath your army. Meanwhile, the lings, of course, cannot. So that's the way to micro it. But ideally, don't find yourself in that position in the first place. Have something in your mineral line, either a cannon in the mineral line or a pylon with the mothership core not too far away. That gives you the sort of freedom to move your units out and park them in a defensive position at the front, or work across the map and be aggressive, or even just on the map to have some map presence and know what is going on. In the production tab, we can see a Nidus. Radiowaves used a Nidus network very, very effectively in one of the games against Genie. To unload a large number of roaches and lings, and I think hydras as well, into the back of his opponent's base, and that was game ending. So we can see that roach speed is just about to finish up. This could be bad. Let's have a look at the army supplies. So reasonably even, so it's all going to be about positioning. These units that are out the front of the Protoss base aren't going to be overly helpful. These units are going to help because they're in a position to be slightly defensive, but you're going to need more than that, Fod. Of course, that's easy to say, but Fod is still struggling economically. Radiowaves with not as big an advantage at this point as you would think, with this second base kind of half saturated. Radiowaves meanwhile hasn't actually saturated his men, and a long way from saturating the natural. So while he's clawed it back, that gap in between means that the total amount of minerals mined by the Zerg player is significantly high. Oh, here we go. What's this? So another drop into the natural is cleaned up relatively quickly. Any workers killed that time? No, not really. Not well. Perhaps a few. I'm not sure. I just looked at this like just a minute ago, and we could see that there was definitely more workers than that, wasn't there? But I don't think very many. So I don't think that killed a great deal. I noticed that, Lewis mentioned in the chat about, one of the interfaces, the replay interfaces that allows you to see how many workers were killed by a particular action. I think that's a proprietary interface. I don't think that is part of the actual StarCraft binary. I think that is one that they made for WCS or IEM or something like that. That's a third party, I think. I have mucked about with the different interfaces, but to be honest, because I'm primarily a player rather than a caster, just the normal this interface is probably the one I like the most. So what's going to come next from Radiowaves? He has very much been the aggressor in this game. Fod with the Forge, I would like to see cannons, and here we are going to see a couple of cannons. Well, what is going on with that? That's really weird. For some reason my pylons have turned into square blocks. But yeah, I'd like to see pylons. I'd like to see cannons to hold this stuff off, and I would definitely like to see the mothership core. No workers in production for Radiowaves anymore. Has kind of saturated his natural mineral wise, but still hasn't put anything into these gas geysers. Notice that he has a spire. If he's looking to produce mutas, really you need to be mining off at least 4 gas and ideally 6 to provide full muta production. At 100 gas per unit, mutas are pretty gas intensive, so he needs to sort that out. This spread of units, I don't think these zealots, they do have charge, the zealots, so that's pretty good. If anything comes through the front, these will be able to funnel through there pretty quickly and catch it. So zealot charge might be decisive in any sort of frontal assault. Still with a handful of units here, personally I'd drop another cannon and get my units out onto the map and start being aggressive to the Zerg. If you leave a Zerg alone for a long time, you lose is generally what happens, because by the time you work your way across the map, what have we here? Nidus. Okay, what's in the Nidus? Where is it? Oh my goodness, roughly 4 tabs of units, 2.5 tabs of roaches, a tab and a half of lings. That's a lot of units. Fod will have seen this now. How quickly does he pull his units? He doesn't pull them at all. Fod, what are you doing? Fod! Arrgh! Needs to pull these frontal ones back. They can't assault that on their own. You need to get your army all in the one place at the one time, but I don't think you have enough. This is an awful lot of Zerg, and you just don't have enough to hold it, really. I don't think you ever had enough to hold that. Yeah, this is the end of Fod in this game. However, what we're seeing here isn't the thing that killed him. The thing that killed him was the drop lord earlier in the game that just unloaded itlings into the mineral line and just gutted Fod's economy. That was when the damage was done for sure. So yeah, we're seeing the end. Oh, nice force field to keep them out of your natch. Unfortunately, you've got no production left. Well, 2 gateways, and 2 gateways will not allow you to build enough units to see this stuff off in any way, shape or form. So it will be GG. Yeah, not a bad game. Radiowaves showing that he's got his build pretty sorted, likes to mix it up between these Nidus attacks and drop lords mixed up with frontal assaults. Yeah, so looking pretty good. Radiowaves looking pretty good, knows how to macro as Zerg, and appears to be getting the hang of finding that balance between building up your economy and building up an army. That's the one thing you've got to be able to do as Zerg. Now this cannon is going to see the burrowed units, but it doesn't matter, they're already in doing damage. As a Zerg, all of your units come from larvae that come from the hatcheries, so workers come from the same place as units. So building units, every unit that you build is a worker that you didn't build, and that's the real key to playing well as Zerg. It's finding that balance in the early game. How many of your larvae do you turn into workers? How many do you turn into units? That's what it's about, and he seems to be finding that balance pretty well and using it effectively. Fod didn't do too badly at all, was teching up, and again, was also finding the balance in Protoss land between economy and units. Unfortunate not to have spotted not to have been able to pull the workers sooner in that first sort of drop of lings. So GG, game 1 goes to Radiowaves. I don't know how long I've got here. I might not have time to cast game 2, but I'm going to start it anyway, and we'll see. GG, man, GG.